Developer relations is one of those things where there are recurring common questions. Maybe there's three main ones. There's what department should it be in? How can we measure it? And what are the job titles? So we thought we would take a look at answering the last of those. My name is Matthew Ravel. I am a DevRel consultant at Hoopy, and I'm joined by.
My name's Sue Shardlight. I'm also a DevRel consultant at Hoopy.
So we set out to answer that question by taking a snapshot of the job titles used in DevRel teams today, and also to try and get an idea of what career progression for individual contributors in DevRel looks like.
If you work in developer relations, you'll know that there's very little standardization in job titles. So you'll hear job titles like developer advocate, developer evangelist, developer educator, community manager, and other job titles. And it's very hard to know from those job titles what people actually do as part of their job, which tasks that they undertake. So, what Matthew and I sought to do through this report was look at all the job titles that we could find across the industry and also all the tasks that we could find across the industry and look at how they map together.
So, why is it a problem that there isn't standardization or a common understanding of job titles? In our research, as well as our work within DevRel, we found that it is limiting to people's ability to select a job when they are job hunting, because one job title could be used in company A in a very different way to company B. And so there's this perennial problem within DevRel of mismatched expectations, and that starts with lack of clarity over job titles. But then it feeds through into promotion prospects. So, up until fairly recently, the main way to get promotion as a DevRel person was to take on management responsibility. But recently, more companies have been building their own DevRel individual contributor career ladders. So, we will touch on that to some extent too.
It's important to know what skills are required in DevRel people so that you can make sure that your recruitment process is clear and transparent. As well as that, it feeds into the promotion process because if you are clear about what's required of people at different levels, then it's very easy to justify whether or not somebody should progress to the next level. If you don't have any kind of idea of this, then it's very difficult to have that conversation. To get a copy of the report, please go to developerrelations.com/reports where you can download it, and we won't ask you for your email address. You can just press download and get a copy straight away.
Now, I've got to say thank you to Common Room, who sponsored this report, and they also contributed to some of the research through things such as the compensation survey that they did last year.
So, the way in which you build your DevRel team will depend very much on why your company is investing in DevRel. So, you might have your DevRel team because you want them to help with sales enablement or to build out your community, to get feedback from developers, to educate developers about your product, and a range of other reasons.
So that makes developer relations somewhat special, let's say, within all of the different departments you might have in a company, because really it's fairly fixed the reason why we have sales or the reason why a company invests in engineering. Whereas with developer relations, there are different strategic reasons that spark the need for that investment. So that then means that developer relations people in different companies end up doing different things. And that's why we see the variety in one job title meaning quite different things between different companies. So we thought it would be helpful to draw on some of the other work that we've done at Hoopy in the past, which is to try and define the areas of activity that make up a typical developer relations program. And essentially, I think it's fair to say that DevRel is a hybrid that borrows quite liberally from other disciplines. And that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing, because what we're doing is We're serving a particular audience, but doing that by borrowing from what other people have seen to work well and also developing our own techniques and strategies. So, what are those four things, those four pillars of developer relations? Well, there's marketing. Now, we haven't got time to go into the whole what is marketing and DevRel versus marketing thing, but essentially, what we're looking to do with marketing is to build awareness, change perceptions, generate leads, even bring people in to our fold. Then there's enablement, which covers developer experience, documentation, SDKs, support, everything that makes it possible for a developer to become successful with your product.
Next, we have advocacy, and you would expect that since a lot of folks who work in DevRel are called developer advocates. But advocacy is about being the voice of the company to the developer and the voice of the developer to the company. So it's all about going out, educating people about your product, and also gaining feedback from them to bring back into the organization to help develop your offering. And lastly, we have community. So that's about nurturing a community around your products and also collaborating with other communities. So you might go out and find language specific ones, or you might even go out and find other products that you want to collaborate with. You might want to establish a champions program and identify and reward individual community members as well.
So, in the report, we look at what those strategic reasons mean in terms of the job roles that teams have. And we've identified three what we would call core DevRel job roles. There are others supporting roles that we look at as well. But those core job roles are developer advocate, which comes in different forms, as we'll see in a moment, community manager, and developer educator. So let's look at developer advocate first.
If you're starting out and you have a small amount to invest in DevRel, you might have all-rounder developer advocates, and these folks tend to do a wide range of activities and don't tend to specialize in any one thing. Then we have outreach focused developer advocates who are all about developing awareness of the product within the developer community. And because of that, they're probably going to be mostly found in the marketing realm. We also have product focused developer advocates who are very much involved with developing the product with the community and talking to the community about the product to get feedback that they can bring back into the organization so that the product really works for the developers. We also have internal developer advocates, which is something that we didn't find in a lot of the companies that we looked at, but it still exists. And these folks are very much involved in enablement of their colleagues within the organization that they work in. So they're helping folks to level up with different tools and technologies.
So, developer advocates come in all different shapes and sizes. They fulfill different roles within the organization. And that's something of a problem because it makes it harder for people to think about and to plan for these roles. And so, I think it is useful if we adopt these specialized job titles of product focused or outreach focused, or even go back to saying developer evangelist when what we mean is someone who goes out there and primarily talks at conferences and meetups or does Twitch streams. Now, okay, there are still lots of all-rounder developer advocates out there, but I kind of think, and what we found in the research is that companies, as they grow their DevRel function, quickly move away from that. And even if they don't give them different job titles, people tend to settle into a role that they are best suited to. So we all know a developer advocate who pretty much only does online content, and then another developer advocate who pretty much only does the conference circuit. The other big job title obviously, perhaps in DevRel, is community manager. And Suze, what did we find about community managers?
So, developer community is widely recognized to be the foundation upon which you'd build your developer relations program. And therefore, the community manager can play a pivotal role in your developer relations unit. And a community manager doesn't necessarily need to be a software engineer, but they definitely need to have an appreciation for the technologies that the community is working with and for the products that the organization is selling. So they need to know why and how those developers are using those products and how they fit into the ecosystem. So if we go back to the four pillars of DevRel, so we've got advocacy, marketing, enablement, and community. Naturally, the community manager will be more skewed towards the community pillar, but they will definitely have some involvement in all the other three as well.
And I think what's important about a community manager is that it is a role, a distinct role in its own right that performs a really important function within developer relations programs. If developer advocates are looking after the outward facing functions, going out to conferences, writing content, doing webinars, even, or getting involved in Discord channels and so on, then the community manager is the person who I think, and from what we saw in our research, creates space for everything to function well and for people to come together to pursue a common goal, to solve a common problem, and in doing so to meet some of their own goals too, and to grow within that community. So it's a really crucial job role. And then the third of the main job titles that we came across was developer educator. Now, this is a relatively new job title that came to prominence, I think, somewhat during the height of the pandemic when travel wasn't really happening and companies needed to refocus their DevRel efforts for an online world. But developer educator isn't just a developer advocate who's tied to their chair. A developer educator, in our experience, is someone who combines the documentation and developer experience of technical writers and perhaps DevRel engineers to some extent with the pedagogical techniques of traditional teaching, school teaching or college teaching, and brings those together to create learning journeys for developers. So, alongside those three, let's say, canonical DevRel roles, there are some supporting roles as well. And these are roles that we found in often much larger teams who enable the developer advocates, the developer educators, the community managers to focus on their specific discipline. And then these supporting roles are specialists in what they do, but it's not necessarily a DevRel speciality. So, Suze, do you want to tell us about the program manager?
Yeah, so the program manager really holds together what everybody's doing. And like Matthew said, you will find these types of roles mostly in bigger teams or more established teams. And if you're in a smaller team, you won't have the luxury of having somebody to organize you. So you have to do it yourself. But the program manager will take the strategy and the agreed tactics and make sure that they are executed upon. So they have to be highly organized and really have their finger on the pulse of what the team's trying to achieve.
And then there's a similar role, at least on the surface, it looks like a similar role, the operations person. So an operations manager is more about the hands-on administrative execution, while the program manager is looking at the bigger picture and may actually come from a DevRel role themselves. So GitHub's Campus Expert program is run by someone in the job title of program manager, whereas an operations manager is someone who isn't necessarily thinking about the DevRel strategy, but they're just thinking about the step-by-step execution. So this might be in a specialized version, such as an events manager, or you might have a content manager who'll make sure that the content calendar works well and things are distributed to the right channels and so on.
So, as well as those roles, you might have a developer experience engineer. And generally, if you work in developer relations and you're a developer advocate, you will do coding, and it's probably mostly going to be demos and things like that to help people to use your product. But developer experience engineers are very much focused on creating the kits, so the SDKs for developers to use so that they can use your product. So you're actually creating something alongside the product that helps people to use it as opposed to just a demo. So these folks are highly technical as well. Some developer advocates do this as part of their job, but if you're in a bigger team, then you've probably got folks that are dedicated to creating these tools.
And then there's one that is arguably on the edges of developer relations, maybe more in support, maybe even in sales engineering. But there is a job title of developer success engineer that we've noticed coming up. And really, what they are doing is helping developers with proofs of concept and making sure that after the customer has committed to a particular product, making sure that they're getting the most out of it and helping them to be successful with it.
So, one of the challenges for folks working in DevRel and people managing DevRel teams is that there isn't a standardized career path for DevRel people. And that's something that we wanted to look at in this report. It's important to know what's required of people at different levels so that you are recruiting people at the appropriate level and you know what you're looking for and what's expected of them. But also, once they're in your team and you're having those conversations about, I want to be promoted, to confidently have those conversations with people so that you can justify whether or not they're ready to move to the next stage. So, having looked at what's happening in the industry, we pulled out 5 things that you need to consider at each level of the DevRel career ladder. So, you need to look at the independence with which they work, the competence and skill level that they have in each of the areas that you expect them to execute, the level to which they collaborate. So, are they purely collaborating within the team? Do they have a wider reach and influence? The execution, are they executing at a high level or do they need more hand holding? And also the strategic influence and the scope of what they're doing. Are they helping to set the strategy or are they purely executing tactics against it?
So, bringing each of those together and the conversations that we had across the DevRel industry, and also looking at published reports of what DevRel teams are doing, we identified something of a career path for individual contributors within DevRel. And this is important because people have left DevRel because they didn't see career progression open to them without managing a team, and not everyone wants to manage a team. The levels that we identified were junior or apprentice at the beginning. So these are people who will be able to complete small projects on their own that have been defined by someone else, but they're at the start of their career. Then mid-level, which is probably what most of us would have thought of previously as just a developer advocate. So, you're able to scope projects and complete them without someone making sure that you're okay at every step of the way, and you start collaborating across the organization. Then there's senior, which is about taking a view of the scalability and repeatability of things. So it's looking at improving process and systems and collaborating as a matter of course across the organization to deliver a particular project or set of goals. Then this is where job titles maybe differ a little bit across organizations, but staff and principals seem to get swapped around in some places. But it seemed that staff tends to primarily come next after senior. And that's about owning strategically meaningful, strategically impactful initiatives. So you're driving them. You might not be managing a team, but you're managing the delivery of something that is really crucial to that team's success. Then principle is about building on that to pull together multiple functions, multiple departments, multiple people within the company to deliver bigger, larger scale projects and goals. And then this isn't really something that we have seen a great deal within our research, but we have come across one or two people who have the distinguished developer advocate title, and it seems to be used more as an honorific. So you've got to principal. Where do you go from there? Well, we'll give you a distinguished title. In engineering circles, people then maybe might go on to have a fellow engineer or something like that, but we didn't see that in DevRel.
We'd like to thank everybody who helped us with the creation of this report and all the folks that we spoke to for our research. If you'd like to know a little bit more about them, you can get a copy of the report at developerrelations.com/reports.
And of course, thank you to Common Room for supporting this work. You can find out more about Common Room at commonroom.io. So, in a week's time, we are going to do a live audio Q&A session on LinkedIn. We will be posting details to the underscore DevRel Twitter account, the developerrelations.com LinkedIn account, and of course, we'll put it into the DevRel newsletter. So you can join us there. It would be great to have you with us. For now, though, I think it's well, goodbye from me and
Goodbye from me.